This is my review of the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo in Brisbane. So I attended the show on Saturday the 14th of February 2026, and I'm going to go through my experience, what I thought of the show, and it's going to cover everything. So the show, the travel, the weather, the price, the seating location, and so forth. So first of all, I should say it's only my opinion, and you may think that the show was excellent, or you may think that it was average, or you may think that it was terrible, and this is just my opinion. Also, I should say that I have been to the show before. So I went to the show in 2010 when it was held in Sydney. So the first thing that I should say is the weather. So there was a lot of worry that there was going to be heavy rain on all of the days that the show was. So that's Thursday the 12th, Friday the 13th, Saturday the 14th, and Sunday the 15th. I'm recording this actually on Sunday the 15th, and it turned out to not be the case. So while I was there, arrived at the stadium at about 6:15, right through till leaving the stadium at about 9:45, there was not any heavy rain. It was drizzle that you could see in the lights, and we weren't undercover, so we would have felt it if it was raining, but it was very light drizzle. I felt a couple of drops of rain throughout the whole thing, and it was not raining, so that was good from our perspective. It is raining today though, so I'm not sure how things will go tonight. So thinking about the transport, there's a bunch of ways to get there. You can catch the train, or you can catch a bus, shuttle bus. So I went with a family member, and we caught the shuttle bus from Chermside, which is on the north side of Brisbane, and we parked in the Westfield Chermside shopping centre, ran across the road, and we were on a bus within about 10 minutes. No real delays to get through using the busways down to the stadium, and we were, total journey time about half an hour. And the same going home is that even though there was lots of people when we went outside, the lines was moving pretty quick, and we didn't wait longer than, I would say in total, no more than 10 minutes. We were on a bus, no real delays, and we were back at Chermside Shopping Centre within the half an hour in total. So possibly a little bit more than that because of the time taken to actually get out of the stadium. So I think maybe 40 minutes from the time we were in the stadium to the time we were jumping off the bus back at Chermside. So in that sense, pretty good. I know there were complaints from the earlier days that it wasn't too good, but we found it to be an excellent free service that's part of your ticket. So turning to the show itself, the show started at 7:30, and prior to that they had merchandise and so forth available. The lines were really long for the merchandise, and one thing that I found interesting was that I thought I'd leave, wouldn't get any merchandise, and then we decided that I might get something for one of my relatives, so I went back during the interval. I'm not sure what time the interval was, but maybe it was just before, somewhere between 8:30 and 9 o'clock. Something like that anyway, and all the merchandise had basically been sold out. So I don't know whether they sort of allocated it per day or what, but it was sold out, so I wasn't able to get a bit of merchandise. In terms of where we sat in the venue, so Suncorp Stadium is in Milton, and that's in the suburb of Brisbane, very, very close to the city, and we sat on the eastern stand. See if I can find it here. So this is the stadium here. This is the eastern stand. I'll see if I can make it bigger. I don't think it's going to let me, but we sat in 321. So where the mouse is hovering. In fact, I might show you. We sat here in 321, so basically right in the middle. If you're watching a football game, we were right next to the the centre line, the middle line, and 17 rows back from the front, so you couldn't have got much better seats. Great view. This stadium has a view pretty much from anywhere, although in this case the full stadium wasn't used. So pretty good seats. Expensive though. The tickets for that area were over $300. So in terms of the stadium, you can see that there was a set here. So in this area here was a very large screen. I think they said it was Australia's biggest TV screen, apparently 50 metres wide and 25 metres high. And you can see that this whole area here is greyed out because you couldn't sit there because you'd be behind the big screen. And I also noticed while I was there that this area here and these areas here were empty, and I'm not sure why they decided to put seats available in that area, because you wouldn't have been able to see the screen. If you could, it would have been pointless because you would have been looking at it side on. So that was a bit odd, and I'll come back to the screen a little bit later on. But in terms of how many people were there, I think they said about 30,000, and not many seats vacant. There were some clusters of seats around the place that weren't taken, but mostly just in these areas here, so where the screen was. So people had obviously seen and not booked in advance. But other than that, even all the way up to the level 7 seats up here, which are the highest seats, actually they're only on two sides, they were all full. So they are quite a distance up from the playing field. So that's where we sat. So these are the times, the times for the event. So 4:30 shuttle buses from Chermside and other locations around the city. And then you can see the gates open at 5:30. Show started at 7:30 and it finished, if my memory is correct, just before 10 o'clock. I was actually thinking it went till 10:30, but it didn't. It finished a little bit before that. So now turning to the show itself. So I did get a program, and it gives you basically the running order of how the show went, and I'll just kind of work through that and give you my thoughts on what I thought of the show. So the first thing that I would think is that they had speakers along the side of the playing field. So I'll just show you where they were. They were dotted along here facing the crowd, and at times that was very, very loud, and it was to the point where you're almost covering your ears. It was extremely loud at that point. And like I said, they also had the screen here, the 50 metre wide, 25 metre high TV screen. And I thought at times during the show that was a little bit pointless. It had the display of the castle, which looked really realistic, but at times when there were performances playing, they weren't just showing the performance. So obviously, if you're quite some way away, it's nice to have a close-up like a football game, but and there's actually TV screens here and here. This one couldn't be used because it was covered, but they are very large TV screens that are suitable for the football games or other sporting events and concerts and stuff. I'm not sure why they didn't use those, because the TV screen that they used, I don't think it was used very well, and sometimes it wasn't even displaying anything to do with the show. It was displaying these patterns and things that were completely unrelated to the show. And then at times when they were showing the close-ups of the performers, it wasn't just the close-up of the performer, it was sort of overlaid with these strange patterns, and I thought it was distracting and unnecessary. I thought I didn't think it added much to the show. So I'll just go through the running order and give you my thoughts from what I can recall of the show. Can't remember every single thing, but give you my thoughts. So they had the opening fanfare, which was music and so forth. They then had the Yuggera Maganjan people do the Welcome to Country, which I thought was pretty good. And I think that on that point, I think it was a bit of a missed opportunity that they didn't have an Australian Indigenous act, some cultural activities or some didgeridoo or something like that. I thought that was a real missed opportunity. Then moved on to the mass pipes and drums. I'll just quickly go through each band. So the pipes and drums of the Australian Defence Force, pipes and drums of the 1st Battalion Scots Guards, pipes and drums of the 3rd Battalion Royal Regiment of Scotland, pipes and drums of the 4th Battalion Royal Regiment of Scotland, the pipes and drums of the Royal Corps of Signals, the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo Pipes and Drums, the Auckland Police Pipe Band, the Brisbane Boys College Pipe Band, the Queensland Police Pipes and Drums, and the Western Australian Police Pipe Band. So they did a up and down sort of musical recital, which is excellent and thoroughly enjoyable. Excellent musicianship. And I think the thing that I would say about that is there was not that much use, in my opinion, of the piping. As you can see, the event is very much, from the photos here, the event is very much promoted as having this Scottish theme and being a piece of Scotland and so forth. And there was, as you'll see when we go through, there was very little piping involved in this whole event. That's what I thought anyway. Anyway, I'll continue. So you then had the combined military bands of the Australian Defence Force. Pretty good, but it was a brass band. UK Mass Military Band, so the Royal Marines Scotland and Corps of Drums of the Royal Marines, the Band of the Royal Regiment of Scotland, the Central Band of the Royal Air Force, and the Duchess of Edinburgh's String Orchestra. So again, pretty good musically, but mostly brass arrangements. Australia's Federation Guard. So if you're not familiar with this group, it's Australia's first ever ceremonial unit of the Defence Force. So it's Navy, Air Force and Army. And I didn't think their performance was that good. They seemed to be, in some aspects, out of time, not lining up straight, etc. They're not instrumental though. They're just parade and marching and ceremony. It says, now that's what I call Tattoo 75. I'm not sure if that was a interlude part, but I guess that brings me to the next point, which is the person that they had doing the role of the storyteller. So his name was Terence Ray, spelled R-A-E, and it's nothing personal against him, but it felt very cringe. The storyteller was running around almost like a person at a football game when it's halftime, trying to rev the crowd up. Someone from a radio station is trying to rev the crowd up and get the camera focusing on people waving and stuff like that. It felt really out of place and really odd. And like I said, I thought it was cringe. And that was throughout. So he went and did costume changes throughout, and there was a bit of storytelling in there, but there was a bit of, which was quite good, but there was lots of running towards the crowd and dancing like he was at a rave, and trying to rev the crowd up when the crowd was quite different than what you would see at a football game. If you went to a football game, most people it's a younger crowd. When I compare it to last night, it was an older crowd on average, 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond, and it just seemed really out of place and really cringe. The next group was the United States Marine Drum and Bugle Corps, and this was really, really good. They were a brass band and a drum band, and they were moving around really quickly, and it looked really, really flawless. Maybe a little bit loud. The volume was a bit loud, but yeah, really, they looked like robots. They were that much in time, and that was really good. The next group is His Majesty's Armed Forces, the Royal Corps of Musicians Tonga. So brass band, and they had also with them some dancers, and this was really good. They're pretty good for a little Pacific Island country, and thoroughly enjoyable. The next was His Majesty the King of Norway's Guard, Band and Drill Team. So they had instruments as well as firearms, and they were excellent. They just displayed a level of precision that was really, really good. There was a bit of a surprise a couple of times when it must have been blanks they were firing off, but in terms of them, again, they were excellent. The next one is Edinburgh 900, which I think is the dancing, I believe. Scottish dancing, if that's what it is from my memory, then it was pretty good. Next was the New Zealand Army Band, and they were good. It's a brass band, not a pipe band, and they do a little bit of dancing as well. And I think this is something that was in something that I found a bit odd, which was in a number of the Army Band presentations, was they were singing pop songs or rock songs, and I know that that's part of the theme of the tattoo was Scottish pop, so I think there were some famous songs weaved into each group, or a number of groups' performances. As they were doing their performance, and then they would break out into some Scottish pop songs, and yeah, I've got to say I found it a bit strange, and I found it a little bit cringe. It was just, I'm not sure why there wasn't some Australian theme weaved into it. It just seemed really out of place, and it just came across as a little bit odd, I must say. The next group was the Top Secret Drum Corps. Now, these were fantastic. 100 out of 10 if you're marking them. I've watched them back on YouTube today, and I have seen them before, so it's not my first time seeing them, and I was that impressed by them that I jumped on to YouTube this morning and watched them again, and watching them on YouTube does not give it justice, because they were just fantastic. The skill level is really breathtaking. There was then a drum corps ensemble, which is all of the drums together, number of groups, which was really good. Then there was the Japan Air Self-Defense Force Central Band, again a brass band with a singer. It was sung in Japanese, so I'm not sure what they were singing, but they were quite good. Seemed to be well rehearsed. You then had a Maori group, so it's Ngā Tumanako Te Matanini. I'm not sure what that means in Maori, but that's another thing, is that it was never explained what that meant. I'm sure it has an important meaning, and it would have been good to explain what it meant. This was a Maori cultural group. They came out, they did a mix of haka, which is Maori dance, war challenge. There were male and female performers. The males were doing mostly haka. The females had pois, which are that's spelled POI. They're little bags of, I'm not sure what they are, but they've got flax covering, and they used it in a twirling action, and that was quite good. However, they just went at full pace the whole time. There was no individual aspect to it. There was no stopping and doing a second act. They just sort of came on, they were at full pace, and I was kind of waiting for a break to applaud them and so forth, and then they just vanished. They just went off to the other side, and there was never any explanation of what the group name means. and I thought that was a bit of a shame. There was then a bunch of different group songs and activities. Then there was a lone piper, which was positioned way high up in the stadium, towards away from the screen end. So at this end, down here, way up, probably up here on level 5, the 500 seats, and that was really good because there was no amplification of that sound. It was really pretty eerie actually because everyone was quiet, and then because all of the performers had come onto the field, then was a progressive march off of all those performers, closing with the mass pipes and drums of all those. How many was there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 bands all together. So what do I think in conclusion? I think they miss a little bit of an opportunity with this one, and so I've discussed it with a couple of other people who kind of think the same thing, is that it's very much advertised as having a Scottish theme, and it's bagpipes and military bands and everything are very important to it, and I think that there was not much piping at all other than the mass pipes and drums marching at the beginning and then the march off at the end. They were sort of different pipe bands were sort of brought out during some of the performances and provided some background music or in combination with other groups. But I thought that was kind of a missed opportunity to show off, piping in Australia and drumming in Australia. There were a couple of Australian groups there that could have done a fantastic performance, with a small group or an individual who's, appropriately skilled. So I thought there was a lack of piping in there, lack of drumming in there in terms of pipes and drums together. I felt that it just seemed a bit strange that they were sort of left out of the show. They opened the show, they closed the show, but in the middle there was not really that much piping. I think also too a lot of the groups there was a heavy influence of pop music throughout it. So they would come out and do their traditional performance, and then they would just break out. They would have singers, and they would just break out into pop music, which I thought was strange. And I have seen that before, but it's usually one group out of 5 or 2 groups out of 7 or something like that. But it was very much most of the groups had some aspect of breaking out into pop songs, and I thought it was a sing-along with the crowd, and it just felt really strange, and sort of a missed opportunity that there was no, like I said before, there was no Australian Indigenous group. I thought that would have been really good, someone who's really skilled at didgeridoo or something of that nature. I thought there could have been more of a Australian aspect to it, given that it was held in Australia. Some Australian piping, showing off our talent to a worldwide audience. And in some ways, the Australian pipe bands that were there just kind of, if you didn't know what you were looking for, you wouldn't have even noticed them, because they were just in the mass pipes and drums, and there was no sort of acknowledgement that pipe and drum music is not just Scotland, and it's not just the UK. It's quite a few other countries. Like I said, I did find the storyteller thing a bit cringe and a bit forced and a bit contrived, I think. I don't think it added anything to the show. And I think it's quite a different show than the one I went to in 2010. I remember from 2010 it being much more, maybe formal and rigid is the right word, but that's what I remember, and that's what I appreciated of it. Overall, it was a good spectacle, and it was enjoyable in the main. The transport was good, the weather held off. it was a full house, and got to see some excellent musicians and performers. So they're the positive things, and some new groups that I've not seen before that I can follow along with and listen to on YouTube and that sort of thing. In terms of negatives, like I said, the price was, I think, excessive for what it was, and I think that the delivery of the show was a little bit cringe and a little bit missed the mark in terms of inviting groups from Japan, which is fine, but what about inserting a bit more of an Australian flavour into it and recognising some of our musicians and a military from this part of the world? So that's what I thought. In terms of giving it a score out of 10, if I was to give it a score out of 10, it'd probably be a 6.5 or a 7 out of 10. Would I go again? Well, I probably will if it returns to Australia at some point in the future. If it's every 15 years, then I'll be waiting till 2041. If it was here every few years, every 3 or 4 years, I probably wouldn't go back, because I think that it was, I think a few people that I have spoken with said that it was a little underwhelming, I would say. Then they were expecting more of a, given the way that it's promoted, expecting pipes and drums music to play a little more of a role, and it to be a bit more Australian, to highlight that it is here in Australia, and it is, we have good musical groups here too. Anyway, that's my review. A bit of a mixed bag, really. It was not overwhelming. It was, I certainly found underwhelming. I'm glad I went, but would I go again? Like I said, I don't think I would if it was here every few years. And that's about it. Let us know what you think. You may have a totally different view, or you may have perceived it in another way that I haven't seen. Okay, that's it for now.